Ongoing hearing at the lower house on the Duterte administration's drug war. And our first guest tonight was actually there in person at the hearing earlier. We have attorney Kristina Conti. She's ICC Assistant to Counsel. Thanks for rushing here from Quezon City. We appreciate your time and effort so much, Attorney Conti.
You're welcome and lovely to be here in person finally.
I know. You had to cut out early from the hearing, but already there were a lot of big revelations as well, beginning with former Senator Leila de Lima, who confirmed the existence of a reward system, which she investigated when she was CHR, Commission on Human Rights Commissioner as well. But for you, what were your big takeaways from today?
Well, from today, one is, of course, the connection of the DDS, the Davao model. That was what was raised previously, that the national or nationwide drug war was patterned after the Davao model. So actually, for the general public, it is a big revelation how the drug war or the DDS model operated. For some of us, though, we have had access to this information before, but the detail that Senator de Lima came up with today, and for her to say that she was even volunteering to give her personal notes, investigation notes. So that's important for us. And if these notes are to be supplied to the congressmen, then I think they would have a better understanding of, this is a clearer picture actually of what's happening. And I dare say it is coming closer to what the ICC is investigating even. If before we were talking about killings during Duterte was president, now we're also talking about killings when Duterte was mayor. So that's key for us. And then, of course, another revelation would have been the killings of individual persons, now the mayors in Batangas and Cavite, which are being, I don't know, it's like a ping-pong story already. He said, she said na, sasabihin ng isa, ito yung pumatay, hindi ako.
Yeah, correct.
So we'll see, but at least we're shedding light into these individual killings, which maybe before we thought were unconnected, or unrelated. Now we're seeing it's all part of the plan.
After the sworn statement of Royina Garma, did more witnesses come up and have the courage to approach the ICC body? Because I heard you call out for information. Parang meron ka sinabing website no?
Yeah.
Ano bang website yun?
OTP link.
Mas marami ba ang nagkaroon ng tapang?
Well, I don't have access to the OTP link. It's the Office of the Prosecutor. But I must have to note that Royina Garma, I'm still confirming, Royina Garma has not expressed publicly her intention to be an ICC witness.
So she's
It's Kerwin
not
Espinosa.
yet. So she's not yet part.
Yes, maybe we're taking things too fast, kumbaga.
Okay.
So we'll see how the ICC will take
Can her
this
statement in the hearing be handed over to the ICC
Yes,
as
actually.
evidence?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. It could be taken as information that she said it, but when it comes to trial, the question of truth comes into play. And to figure something out as truth, kailangan mong ma-cross-examine.
Oh,
Kailangan mong, well, it could be by deposition or her live testimony in the ICC at The Hague when trial begins. But right now, as proof that she said that there was this kind of reward system, that there was this entire plan, the ICC can take that already as information.
What about Kerwin? You mentioned Kerwin. Now, just watching, events unfold through the years. Kerwin said this, he takes it back, then he says another thing. Will that be factoring in his could be perceived as being wishy-washy?
Yeah, actually, certainly. The more statements you have out in public, whether written or verbal, oral testimony, the more, so to speak, bala against you. Eventually, when you take the stand finally in the ICC, they will take that as, they will pull out the inconsistent statements, they will pull out the contradictory statements, and discredit you essentially as a witness. So that would be a risk if Kerwin Espinosa is to be taken to the ICC. But of course, we would have to weigh what testimony, or what's the weight of the testimony that he will give. To be frank, he said nothing about the system. Because he's not per se an insider. He's not someone who was one of the perpetrators. He was one who was made an instrument, kumbaga. kasi he was asked by Senator Bato to come up with lies against Senator De Lima.
Right.
So that's one. But he was not one of those who perpetrated the killings. So we'll have to see how the ICC would stack that up against the other witnesses as well.
Attorney, earlier this year at a PCIJ conference, you said what the ICC prosecutors are looking for are patterns. In a sense, it's less important how they were killed, but more important who pulled the trigger and whether the killing was similar to the others. That's what they're trying to establish, you said.
Yes, precisely.
This is the 9th hearing of the Quadcom. Do you think they have enough to establish a clear pattern of killings at this point?
Well, I think so. But of course, it depends on which court you're going to present this information to. Again, for the Quadcom, it would be enough. Kasi they're establishing for the public and for eventual legislation. For eventual legislation that these kinds of laws would be remedial. Right now, the issues center around presumption of regularity of duty, how police could be taken to account if they do this or do that, and so forth, and witness protection.
Qualifying heinous crimes.
Yeah, heinous crimes, and then, defining extrajudicial killings. So that's
a good one.
important, yeah. But then that's it. But for the ICC, it might not be enough. For one, they would have to qualify the witnesses as their own witnesses, present them in court, and kumbaga, point to the actual perpetrator. So the ICC looks at the most responsible. And I think we still need a little bit more that points to Duterte as the perpetrator.
So to be clear, what we're getting, all the material we've gotten is enough for local legislation, for House,
For creation of-
for lawmakers
yeah.
to amend or create legislation, but it isn't enough yet to establish a clear pattern as far as the international prosecutors are concerned.
Yes, but again, we have to take that in consideration of what the ICC already has. So separately, independently, it already has information. We know of two already who have come forward and said that, we're ICC witnesses. And that's Matobato and Las Cañas. So let's see how that would stack up with the other witnesses that the ICC might have already.
Speaking of laws, former Senator Leila de Lima mentioned a law a while ago. We do have a law on heinous crimes, which is RA 9851, Philippine Act on Crimes Against International Humanitarian Law, Genocide, and Other Crimes versus Humanity. So, yung willful killing, extermination, enslavement, etc., is punishable by reclusion perpetua. So, we do have that in our law. At nakasulat din doon sa batas na yon, Section 17, in the interest of justice, relevant Philippine authorities may dispense with the investigation or prosecution of a crime punishable under this act if another court or international tribunal is already conducting an investigation or prosecution of such crime. So sinabi niya na bago pa tayo naging miyembro ng ICC, may batas na tayo na nag-recognize sa international tribunal or another court. Is this saying that? Am I correct in my interpretation? And pangalawa, I mean, can we also investigate if not in the ICC, using this law?
Yeah, so two things. So one, actually, the context of the creation of this law was that there was already talk of the ICC as early as 1998. And in fact, the Philippines was one of those who participated in the drafting of the Rome Statute.
Right.
We were so keen on it, we sent several experts, including the one who eventually became a judge before the ICC. So we were so keen on it. Problem was, I think they got into a little bit of discussion. So 2000, ERAP signs accession to the Rome Statute. He agrees. But as president, he has to pass it on to, because it's a treaty, he has to pass it on to Senate. Senate only ratified or agreed to it 2011. So in the interim, from 2000 to 2011, we were, actually 98 even, we were in line with the program dito sa Rome Statute, which is why the local law already recognizes the court and other international tribunals. Now, here's the thing. Can we have, at the same time, two different investigations here and there? Theoretically, yes, but one has to defer to the other. And, I mean, given this provision, and also there's a provision in the ICC, in the Rome Statute, which says complementarity only if the local government, the domestic government, is not working on it.
The only
thing is-
one.
Well, yes, it's a court of last resort. But the thing is, when it started, there wasn't any in the Philippines. Nauna si ICC. So siya ang may, kumbaga, right of first refusal, kumbaga.
Ganun lang ba yun, attorney? Or is it, you have been talking about this, no? Yung parang, if they deem that the local justice system is insufficient, then they can also step in. So if they're not happy with, the results or the turnout or progress of the investigations, they can also step in and
Yes,
start
actually.
their own.
And it's not exactly kumbaga happy with the. They have to look at satisfied more of that na. That this is a substantial investigation into the very things that they are investigating. Kasi naisip na nila yan eh. In fact, even yung pag-exit. So the withdrawal, they put qualifiers. When you withdraw, only after 1 year will it be effective. When you leave and there is a pending investigation, you have to continue continue cooperating with the investigation or any matter under consideration of the court. So supposedly, kapag may kumagat na isa, kumaga, whichever one, dun na magtutuloy-tuloy. And to be clear, there is no investigation yet in the Philippines.
Until now.
Until now.
So yung maliliit na crimes lang, isa-isa lang.
Isa-isa lang,
Hindi yan
murder,
counted.
homicide. And in fact, if we're looking at the Barayuga case, etc., the Dapico case, wala pa nga kaso eh. And we don't even know if they will eventually be filed. We've heard during the Quadcom, DOJ, investigate this, investigate that. But there's no report, there's no actual result
The
yet.
DOJ told us that they have started the case build-up on the Barayuga case.
In fact, at the previous hearing, I think they said, oh, we're waiting for the signature of the wife.
Ah,
But then
okay.
that's still not a
Yeah.
case. And essentially, here's the point. So the ICC is asking, do you have an investigation in the Philippines? It's no longer about unwilling or unable. Do you have an investigation? No. Into crimes against humanity? No. It's just talk. We have something that Senator De Lima has mentioned, several other people have mentioned.
Spokesperson Miko Clavano actually said that they are looking into investigating that systematic...
And the cold cases as well.
But like attorney is saying, looking into it is not enough.
Yeah.
It has to be actually happening
Yeah.
in reality. Now, how does this reflect on Royina Garma? Because I was watching all day. She was again being grilled at around past 6 p.m. They brought out Edelberto Leonardo, who we've all been waiting for. But up until we aired, he didn't really he didn't back her up. So it wasn't what we expected. What were you hoping with that? With his appearance, were you expecting that he would back up the affidavit that Royina Garma had previously submitted?
To be candid, yes. We thought Colonel Leonardo had the guts to commit to the truth. At this point of the hearings, he had been barraged with a lot of questions already. He had been under a lot of stress, technically, because he's always on the stand. Lagi nga siyang hinahanap, saka na nagtatago ka ba? But it was odd for me that he was evasive. He did not confirm the reward system. It might have been because even with the admission of Royina Garma, imagine her still being under investigation for the killings. So maybe from his point of view, he thinks that there's
Wala
no
naman akong
point.
makukuha.
Yeah, there's no point
Not worth-
to
I'm not
admitting.
absolved.
Yeah, I'm not absolved. And I mean, I'm not. One thing is he might have been asking for immunity and it wasn't granted to him. Problem is he's asking the wrong persons. Kasi this is Congress. It's not the House of It's not DOJ. It's not the prosecutors. No, so these people might not have the
The power.
full authority to broker a deal, kumbaga. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, grabe yung pagharap din ng mga victims eh. Parang hindi ka pa ba rin siya na tamaan sa sa panawagan ng mga biktima. But then anyway, even without that, what was alarming for us was that, so Duterte, who's been one name mentioned all throughout, turns out to have called Royina Garma after her testimony, explaining why the INC is, why a member of the INC is the best bet to have for this reward system. It's because the INC daw ay mapagkakatiwalaan sa pera.
Correct.
And that's troublesome for us because that's witness interference. Royina Garma being a possible witness at the ICC and any other future investigation, even domestic investigations, that could be considered as influencing
You
a
mean the
witness.
fact that former President Duterte called her while
Yes.
she's detained?
And she answered.
But then,
Yeah.
More of she answered. Yeah.
well,
Nag-iba
it's not
daw
the
ng
fact that she
number.
answered. Of course, she would answer. But then, who gave her the phone? Because she shouldn't have a phone while in detention, right?
Well, I technically I would say that in detention, she's being held she's being held for contempt.
Yes.
So it's not technically a punishment. So she's not a prisoner. Kumbaga.
But
So
with
she would have
Alice-
a little
Alice
bit
Guo, for
of
instance, they took
privilege.
away all
Yeah,
her
and
gadgets.
Cassie.
Yeah.
Pero may kaso.
Yeah, may
Kaso
kaso kasi si
yun.
Alice Guo, and then at this point, she's a suspect in so many other cases.
Okay.
So for Royina Garma, it's more of she's a resource person, she's a witness to several things. She's under investigation for some things, but not yet charged with anything.
Let's come back to the ICC, and I asked Senator Trillanes this. What if the ICC never comes? Because the bigger context to this is, they don't have an army of prosecutors. And the same prosecutor who's looking into the Duterte drug war is the same one who's looking into the destruction of Gaza, right? He's got his plate full, to say the least. They can't even, there's been pressure on them to issue an arrest warrant against Benjamin Netanyahu, which they haven't done to this day. So again, conversely, what if they never come? What then?
Well, they have come. That's one. I mean, it's hard to confirm nor deny again, because problem with that is that because it's an ongoing investigation, they have asked for it to be kept confidential. It's actually in the rules. Only upon the opening of trial of the case can you formally say that, yes, I am part of this trial, because it would afford you some protection. You can apply for witness protection or so. But right now, during investigation, something happens to you, the ICC cannot take care of you, and I mean, reasonably so. Now, what if the ICC trial never comes to fruition? One thing is the warrant of arrest actually is a minimum for us, because for Duterte or any of the other perpetrators of these crimes against humanity, the mere fact that they are internationally wanted criminals and that there is reasonable basis to believe that they committed crimes against humanity, it could be enough for some of the victims as a minimum, because recognition of your victimhood, that of this state policy, is already one step or one form of justice. So, minimum, liliit ang mundo nila. And for some, it could be punishment enough.
If the ICC finally releases warrants of arrest and also a conviction, are we still dependent on or is the ICC dependent on the cooperation of the Philippine government? Or can they work through the Interpol to enforce what has been decided on?
Well, bottom line, they need the Philippine government to cooperate. In the execution of the warrant, it really
Kahit
has
pa
to
Interpol?
be... Yes, the Interpol actually is not a separate police force. It's like parang liga. Hindi pupunta yung ibang team pupunta dito. No? They really need the police to enforce the warrant or to enforce any other orders. And then second, as to detention. Technically, if we were still a member, we could offer Bilibid as a detention facility for the convicted. But we lose that. So anyhow, it's not that we have other ways, but there are other ways of executing the warrant, but we have other ways of compelling the execution of the warrant. Extradition treaty could be an agreement, a request by another country. If you remember, Pemberton daw was released or taken in by the US in exchange for vaccines.
Yes.
So you don't know what kind of diplomatic solution there could be.
When you say the ICC have come, do I also take it to mean you're confident that the pre-trial chamber will eventually issue an arrest order?
Yes, that's the only thing we can do, but hope for the best.
How are the victims? I mean, this is all about them from the start.
Yeah.
Are they happy like we said, lumiit na yung mundo nila kahit paano, di ba? We have kind of outed a lot of the system and etc. Are they okay with this, or are they still willing to see it through to the end, whatever happens?
Well, they're taking every day one step at a time. Iba-iba din sila ng definition ng justice. Yung iba gusto an eye for an eye. Yung iba makulong man lang. But at the minimum, the recognition and the respect that they have earned from the House of Representatives is emboldening them to come forward with their stories. And this hope, if before fear was the one that was contagious or more contagious, now it's hope that there's something at the end of the tunnel for them, whether it's Duterte in jail or Duterte and Bato in jail, and so on.
Well, Executive Secretary Lucas Bersamin said that the Philippines will not be rejoining the ICC. Was that a definitive statement? Did the government change its tune there somehow? Or was that, just something that he said in passing?
It could have been said in passing. One, you never say never. In this administration, they flip-flopped on many issues and many statements. And secondly, rejoining the ICC is a different thing altogether from cooperating with the existing investigation. So actually, whether we rejoin or not, this investigation into the war on drugs of Duterte must and should continue, and we must cooperate with it.
As what former Senator Leila de Lima pointed out, there is an existing law that says we have to participate. We're going to have to leave that there. We thank you so much for your time tonight. That was ICC Assistant to Counsel Attorney Kristina Conti.